Hello, friends, and welcome again to our fireside chat here for chapel. In the past few chapels, we've been talking about prayer and about fasting. 3 times ago, we talked about the desire to pray for bigger things, to pray in boldness beyond the dollar section prayers. 2 sessions ago, we talked about being persistent in prayer. And last time we talked about something a little bit like prayer, but not exactly prayer, called fasting, and I gave you guys a challenge. Well, we shouldn't be surprised that Jesus teaches about both of these things, about prayer and about fasting, and you can read that in a few different places. One of those is in Matthew 6. And in prayer, about prayer, Jesus says this. He says, when you pray, don't be like the hypocrites. That's a fancy word for like the actors, people who pretend to be something they are not. For they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they've received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Now, Jesus is giving us cautions here, but I want to give us a caution too against misunderstanding Jesus' words. We can easily look at this and say, is Jesus saying that we shouldn't pray in front of anybody at all? Like we should just be by ourselves? It's like, I'm pretty sure that my teacher prays before the class, and sometimes the teacher asks my friends to pray there. Is that bad? Is Jesus saying it's bad? I don't think so. That's a good question, but I don't think so. I think that Jesus is saying here, don't make a show of your prayers. Don't use prayer time to show off. Jesus wants our prayers to be sincere. And I think it's okay to pray in a group. And I appreciate it because I know some of your teachers do this. Some of your teachers ask a student to pray, before lunch or before the end of the school day or before the beginning of the school day or whatever. And I think that that's fine because one of the best ways for us to learn to pray is to actually participate in that. So I think that's good. But I think Jesus says, don't make it into a contest. Don't make your prayers into a chance to show off. Because God wants us to pray sincerely, from the heart. And it's okay to pray by yourself. It's okay to pray silently. Because God hears those prayers. Maybe nobody else does, but God does. And God cares about those prayers. So I think Jesus is encouraging us in that direction, first of all. Jesus isn't done. He goes on. He says this, and when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. And again, maybe we look at this and say, does Jesus saying we're not supposed to pray really long? Because, sometimes my teacher prays long, sometimes Mr. Bexford prays long, sometimes Pastor Bruce prays long. Is that not okay? Again, that's a fair question. Sometimes I think it's okay to pray for a while, even if you're just praying by yourself, because there's a lot to pray about. Okay, especially this year and at this time, look around you. There's a lot to pray about. I think, again, Jesus is saying, don't make it a show. Okay, don't think that God only hears you if you pray for 1 minute or longer. Okay, I think Jesus says, listen, God knows your heart and he wants to be asked. But God knows your heart. Don't feel like you have to pray, like the longer you pray, the greater chance God is that he's going to hear you. No, it doesn't work like that. If you have a lot to pray about it. Okay, if you don't feel like you have a lot to pray about, don't just keep on talking. Okay? Stop. Listen. Be sincere. Let God respond to you. All right? Leave room for him and his Spirit and his word to speak to you. About fasting. Jesus says this, when you fast, do not look somber, like sad, like the hypocrites, again, like the actors do, for they disfigure their faces to show others that they are fasting. So again, I think Jesus says, don't put on a show. Okay, if you're fasting, Don't go all day groaning about how hungry you are, or how much you miss chocolate, or hot Takis, or soda, or whatever it is that you decided to put aside for a time. That's what fasting was, you remember. But Jesus says, when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face. In other words, Jesus says, people shouldn't be able to tell that you're fasting just by looking at you. Okay, it's like fasting is something that's meant to be private between you and God. And I encourage you, when we talked last time, I said, don't blare it all around what you're doing. So I encourage you to tell one person. I still think that's good. But Jesus says, don't make it a contest. Don't make it a show. Okay? God knows, even if nobody else knows, even if you're sitting there thinking like, I am so hungry right now, or I miss this so much right now. I feel like I just got to tell somebody because nobody appreciates that I miss this. God does. God sees. God knows. And God hears. So in prayer and in fasting, let's agree not to make it into a contest. It's not a competition. It's not to see who's holier or who can get the most God points, whatever that means. No. God wants us to be sincere. Well, thanks for listening, guys. I appreciate that. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'm glad for this chance to talk. I know this is for me, but I hope that you can learn something from it too. All right? Have a wonderful day.